Welcome to the Leverage Your Potential podcast. This podcast is hosted by the Director and Assistant Director of Menlo College's Office of Internships, Career Services, and Study Abroad, Dylan Houle and Kelly Davis, in partnership with Menlo's Content Creation Club. As a heads up, we were experiencing some technical issues during this episode, so once or twice you might hear us refer to these audio issues or notice a slight jump in our audio editing. However, we don't think it steals away from our guest story or advice. Today's episode is one of the first recorded ICS coffee chats of the summer, featuring Menlo alum Mikkel Bertelsen, class of 2018. Check out and register for summer 2020 ICS coffee chats by looking at the events section of Handshake, if you are a student, or the alumni newsletter events page found on blog.menlo.edu/newsletter/events/. Our next coffee chat will be Friday, July 10th from 9:30 a.m. to 10:30 a.m. Pacific Time. Hope to see you there. Hi everyone, welcome to today's episode of the Leverage Your Potential podcast. I'm Kelly Davis, one of your hosts for today, and this is also our first ICS coffee chat that we are using as a podcast as well. So I'm here with Bianca Barros, my other co-host.
Hi everyone.
We're very pleased to have a Menlo alum with us today, Mikkel Bertelsen, and he is currently working as a project manager for Vaco, which is on site at Google, on a content creation project. And in addition, he is also pursuing his MBA full-time at Westcliff University and majoring in organizational leadership, which I'm really excited to learn a little bit more about. Mikkel, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Wonderful. So to get us started off, if you want to go ahead and tell us a little bit about you, where you're from, how you ended up at Menlo, and then what you ended up majoring in, that would be excellent.
Yep. All right. So I am born and raised in Denmark, a small little country of 5.7 million people. And I lived there until I was 19, I guess. And then suddenly I found out that I wanted to go to the US for college. Actually, my intention was to go here for 1 year, just to kind of try it out. So I found this organization called Go Campus that allows international students to apply to colleges all over the US. You don't really get to set a criteria. They just apply to like 20 different schools, and then you just get 20 answers back. I had set my own criteria, of course, for what I wanted from a school, and I wanted like a small school where you would be in close contact with the professors. Where I would be able to meet a lot of people without the school just being too big. The first one that popped up on my list was actually Menlo. And I just saw that the size was really small. And the location was excellent as well, right in Silicon Valley. So I decided to go for that one, for Menlo, and then I went there for a year, and then I actually went back to Denmark after that year. But pretty quickly after I came back home, I realized that I was not quite done with Menlo. I stayed in Denmark for a year and went to school there, and then I decided to transfer back and came back as a junior, and spent my last 2 years at Menlo. I ended up majoring in international business or international management, and I just felt it was the natural move for me, since I'm an international student. I always dreamt of having an international career in a sense and not having to stay in one country. So I really liked the international aspect of that major for sure.
That's really interesting. Thank you for sharing, Mikkel. It's funny because I also ended up at Menlo because of Go Campus.
Cool.
And I also had to go through that thing where they're applying, you don't know exactly where they're applying on your behalf, and you just get the answers. So I feel your anxiety on that, and I'm glad both of us ended up choosing Menlo.
Yeah.
After you graduated in international management, what led your decision to start working before jumping right into grad school?
I felt that I had spent 4 years learning a lot of stuff in many different classes. And I felt like it was kind of time to try and apply some of all the knowledge that I had gained. So I wanted to have my first adult job, if you can say so. I didn't feel like it was the right timing for me to get an MBA. I wanted to go out, and just try and see what I could achieve with what I had learned at Menlo. So I just got my first job, and I started moving up a little bit within the company. And I thought that was kind of exciting, but that was also where I saw I got a little limited in terms of leadership skills and stuff like that. So I think that was the main reason that I wanted to go out and try and see what I could do with what I had learned already.
And you touched on this a little bit, but what was kind of the turning point when you decided, okay, it's time for me to go back to school? And what were your goals and priorities as you went through the process of finding MBA programs? Where were you looking? What were your criteria this time around? Share with us a bit about that.
Yeah, so as I already said, when I got a bit more of a leadership role, I became a team lead of 3 of our teams, which counted 20 headcount at the time. So I had quite a few people under me at that time, and I could feel I needed a bit more input in terms of my leadership skills and to develop those. So I decided that I wanted to pursue an MBA. I always knew I wanted to either go to grad school or do an MBA, but this just seemed like the right timing. So my goals at that point, if we start professionally, I wanted to move up within the company as much as possible, right? And I felt I needed kind of that extra push from school and learning it, and I had to learn a little bit more before I would be able to take the next step to become a project manager. And my priorities in terms of schools were that I wanted to find something kind of like Menlo. I like the tight-knit community and kind of a school where you can just meet your professors in the hallway and they'll recognize you and you can have a chat with them about anything. I wanted a strong internship program and a school that was kind of pushing you to work on the side, so you could apply whatever you're learning in class, especially because I've taken a lot of classes like organizational behavior, organizational leadership, managerial decision making. When you're managing people, you face struggles every single day. And especially now when I'm a project manager, I am managing more than 60 people.
Wow.
It's a lot, and you encounter a lot of different personalities. And I can just see now when I'm in the situation, I have learned many things in the class that I can apply directly to those decision-making processes that I'm doing every single day. You learn so much about personality types and different work styles and different ways of providing feedback and motivating employees. And I felt like for me, I need to try it as soon as I learn it. So just learning it and not being able to apply it would not work for me. So I think my main goal was to find that in a school that you would be able to pursue a full-time MBA and a full-time job at the same time.
Wow, that's a lot.
It is a lot.
That's really impressive. I mean, it must be really hard to be able to balance a full-time job and a full-time MBA. I could hardly manage my full-time student schools with a part-time job, so I could just imagine. But how has the program been so far? Like, are you enjoying the Westcliff University program? And tell us a little bit more about the challenges of pursuing a degree and working simultaneously.
Mm-hmm. I think the program has been excellent so far. It's kind of set up in a way where we have 3 terms in a year, where as an international student, in order to stay eligible to work, you need to do spring, summer, and winter term, or fall term, sorry. So I basically have school all year round except for a 3-week break over Christmas. That's the only break I get. But on the other hand, I'm only taking 2 classes per semester and 1 internship class. So one of the classes is online and the other class is on campus. So it gives you a bit of flexibility there when it's spread out over the year. But I think it has worked really well because since the school has such a strong internship program, they know that a lot of their students are going to be working on the side. So they have a really good understanding for that. So a lot of our assignments are closely related to our jobs. So you already have knowledge when you have to write an assignment, but you just have to apply whatever you've learned in class. So I think the structure of the program has been really, really great. In terms of balancing work and school at the same time, that's for sure a struggle. But at the same time, it really improves your time management skills, because if I don't have a set schedule every single week with what days I'm going to be doing homework and what days I'm working on the monthly reports for our client and all that stuff, then everything is just going to fall down. So I have a really structured schedule, set days where I'm doing homework. Luckily, I have a lot of colleagues that go to the same school, so we actually all just sit down and kind of have a study hall together and get all our homework done, because it's a bit easier when you're doing it together than just doing it by yourself. So I think that has been the main part of it. Of course, you have school that is expecting you to meet certain deadlines, but my job is also requiring me to meet every single deadline, right? So I think the key word is time management in this case.
Definitely. Has that changed at all with sheltering in place? I mean, you mentioned you used to be able to work with a few colleagues also getting homework done, but is there any way that you kind of replace that right now?
I mean, we do online meetings now. We all work at Google, so we use Google Hangouts for all our meetings on a daily basis. And I think after shelter in place started, I have probably had meetings 5 to 6 hours per day, every single day.
Oh my gosh.
You know, things are pretty easy to solve when you're in office because you see people face to face, but once everybody's sitting in 60 different places around the Bay Area, then things start to become a bit complicated. So I think me and my college have been good at adjusting to just meeting online and getting the work done no matter what. So in that sense, it hasn't changed that much for me. It's given me more flexibility because now everything is online. Westcliff University is located in Irvine, so I would have to travel down there once a month for the weekend classes. But now I'm able to do everything online. So that's actually helped a little bit, and I have more free time now than I had before.
You don't have a 14-hour commute.
No,
once a month.
Because the classes are usually Friday night from 7 p.m. till 9:30 p.m. and then again Saturday morning from 9 a.m. till 5 p.m. So yeah, your entire weekend is basically gone at that point.
Oh my gosh. Wow. Well, the next question was going to be about why you chose organizational leadership as your concentration, but I think you've already explained that pretty well. I'm still really curious to know, and I think some of our listeners will be curious to know as well, what is entailed in the organizational leadership program. Is it more focusing on managerial styles and practices, or is there any leadership theory? Tell us a little bit about what it is you're reading about.
I would say it's a mix of the two that you just described. Like an MBA in general is a pretty broad business degree, I guess. So I have classes like organizational leadership, organizational behavior, managerial decision making, but also have financial management, managerial accounting, technology information systems and stuff like that. So we have learned about different leadership theories, and I think in that sense it's about finding the one that applies to you. They are all good, but you need to find one that works for you personally, because we are all different. And I think that's one of the things we learn as well. That's like the key point in all my leadership classes, that you will not face one situation that's the same. People always change. So yeah, it entails, it's mainly focused on leadership and being and leading by example. And basically teaching us to be good leaders, I guess, in that sense.
That's amazing. I think it's a real challenge these days, teach motivational leadership and how you can be able to motivate people to do things without being a micromanager and things like that. So I think it's really interesting. And I think a lot of our listeners or Menlo students or Menlo recent alums would consider an option very similar to what you're doing right now. So what kind of advice do you have for students that are considering applying to MBA or just grad school in general?
Yeah, I think just to touch on the point you mentioned before I answer your question, when going to Westcliff, it's a very international school. So there are many different, there's a lot of diversity, and you meet a lot of different people from a lot of different countries, kind of like you do at Menlo. And in my job right now, I'm managing people from 6 different countries. And you, like working in the US, you meet a lot of different cultures. So I think in that sense, you also learn how to work with different cultures, as you already learn it in class, and you have to work in group projects and stuff like that. It's kind of fun that you have that diversity in your class, and you're being taught about all these different cultures in class as well. So yeah, I just wanted to mention that point.
Definitely.
I think my advice would be to find the right timing. Obviously, I mentioned that it wasn't the right timing for me right when I graduated from Menlo, because I really just wanted to go out there and see what was possible for me. On the other hand, I knew that I always wanted to pursue an MBA, and I knew I couldn't put it away for too long, because I can say now that it's pretty hard to move from being working full-time to going back to school. So I would say my biggest advice is to find the right timing, but also don't wait too long. So you kind of have to match those two up. And then also, if you're looking at an MBA or a grad school, there are a million options out there. So list your criteria, like what do you want from the school, and I'm 100% sure you'll find a school that will match whatever you want to get out of it, because there are so many available.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that. When you're talking about the right timing, how long did it take you from graduating to the moment you started your MBA program?
Yeah, I graduated in May 2018, and I started my MBA program in May 2019. So 1 year in between.
Perfectly. So I think that's the path a lot of international students choose after the OPT ends, and we have to choose between going back to our country, pursuing education, and things like that. And as we mentioned, OPT, do you want to tell us a little bit more about your job hunting search and advices for international students when they're in the area after graduate?
Yes. OPT, it's a little bit of a tricky visa to get a job on, to be kind of honest, and the same with CPT. But there are companies out there that hire for sure. Now, I don't want to advertise the company that I'm working for, but it is kind of a good opportunity because we specifically support languages within Google. So my team, for instance, we're supporting Danish, Swedish, Norwegian, Finnish, Dutch, and Japanese. And I have another team that's supporting 44 different languages in that sense. So it's a good way into the job market, but I would for sure try and see if you can find something within your expertises. It can be kind of hard to get right into the big corporations. I would try to go for some of the smaller companies, because the jobs might not seem that interesting at first, but there's usually a lot of room for growth within those companies. And eventually, if you are the hardest worker in the room, you will for sure get noticed by the people above you, and they will see your potential and give you an opportunity if you're willing to put in the work. I think that's that's my best advice. Just go out there and show them your worth, and if you put in the work, then you'll get noticed.
That's great advice, Mikkel. And it cut out just briefly again, but it sounds like you were describing an example of working in a smaller company and then putting in that hard work, and it's easier to get noticed. Yeah. And also easier to kind of move up the ranks, so to speak. Yep. In some instances. Well, Mikkel, this has been really great. Bianca, did you have any other questions that you wanted to ask at this time? I thought the one about OPT was excellent.
Another question that we usually ask all of our guests is, what is currently on your bookmark, or some recommendations of other podcasts or something that you're watching, just some content recommendation for our audience?
Okay, it cut out a bit again, but you asked about the podcasts or shows, or what was it?
Or even books that you're reading right now.
Okay. I think one book that I have been reading lately is the book about Andrew Agassi, the tennis player, and his hate-love relationship with tennis. So I think it shows how our life evolves at times. Like, you can love something so dearly in the beginning when you start doing it, but after some time it might become your biggest enemy, because you can only lose at that point or do things wrong. I think it's a pretty harsh way of describing life, but I think it's true in the sense that at one point you'll get to a point where you both love and hate something at the same time. But I think that's a pretty good challenge to have as well.
I really appreciate that book recommendation. I'm really interested to read it myself now. If you have time to send the title, we'll definitely put that in our show notes. But especially with all the audio issues, I think that this has been a really great discussion, and you've offered some really wonderful advice to anyone who's thinking about grad school and when they should apply and how they should go, about thinking about when to go to grad school. So I really appreciate your time with us today, Mikkel, during this coffee chat. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. It was a lot of fun.
Great.
Thank you, Mikkel.
And thanks, Bianca, for tuning in as a host again today. That wraps up today's episode, and any students who are tuning in or alumni, we do have a few more coffee chats this summer. So if you want to tune in, you can check out our events. And we hope that you will tune in, and we hope to see you there. Thank you so much, and have a great day.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Leverage Your Potential podcast. Episodes are posted weekly and can be found on our blog at blog.menlo.edu/career-services/. Make it a great day.